Nick and his wife Anne share a playful, rock-solid marriage. The kind where teasing about infidelity is just another form of flirting. As a high-level executive at a prestigious advertising firm, Nick juggles high-stake clients and corporate politics. But when his eccentric boss derails his evening plans insisting he wine and dine important clients in his place as he has other plans while fawning over a creepy fertility doll. Nick's romantic dinner with Anne is suddenly off the table. It's a disappointing turn of events, but Anne understands, and she reminds him that they'd have to pick up her sister at the airport later that day. However, when his clients postpone the meeting, he decides to surprise his wife, leaving work early. He buys her flowers while the young florist appears smitten by him. He gets home and immediately hears noises upstairs and thinks it's an intruder. He arms himself and quietly seeks them out, but is dumbfounded when he sees his beloved wife in bed with another man. He's too devastated to confront them. He goes back downstairs when he sees his boss's cufflinks on the counter. He pieces together who the mystery man is. With his whole life shattered, he leaves his house aimlessly, driving carelessly for hours. He eventually ends up in a different side of town. When he stops at a light, he is accosted with the demand for his keys and wallet. With nothing left to lose, Nick ignores the danger and drives off with the stranger in his car, disregarding the threats made. He locks the car and throws his wallet out the window. Now, with the tables turned, the assailant practically pleads to be let out, recognizing Nick as a madman but to no avail. The two continue to drive together for hours. Nick drives silently while his companion drudges on about his own misfortune. Finally, coming to a stop at a diner in the middle of nowhere, Nick tells the man to leave, but there's no way for him to get back. The man known as Terrence tries to strike a bargain, realizing Nick can't pay for his coffee or gas without his wallet. But when Nick remembers he has a spare credit card in his car, the two get in a scuffle attempting to get to the car first, but the waitress soon ends it. However, the card is useless, and back in the diner, Terrence, curious about Nick's behavior, guesses women problems. Surprised to learn Nick didn't confront his wife, Terrence boasts about how he commands respect from women. While getting gas, Nick is distracted remembering his wedding day when he hears Terrence in the act of robbery. He attempts to leave without him, but Terrence has the keys. Nick tries to get him to return the cash, but they have to escape when confronted with the furious attendant. Still in hot pursuit, they attract a police officer as well, but Nick skillfully loses them both. Angry Nick confronts Terrence, criticizing his actions, suggesting more responsible ways to get a bigger score. He unintentionally comes up with a way to get back at his boss. He gets the idea to steal from him, revealing how much money he keeps in safe at work, and Nick knows all the details. Meanwhile, the police are looking for them, but they only have a basic idea on how they look like. Just then, we see two other men fitting their description on a mindless crime spree. Later that night, Terrence finds Nick's video camera. When he shows deep knowledge on the technology, Nick is surprised that he hasn't found an honest career. When Terrence mentions that he's looked for work everywhere to no avail, that's why he's resorted to crime. When they stop at another gas station, Nick takes the weapon to avoid another incident. When the attendant sees it, he assumes he's being robbed and retaliates, forcing Nick to use his weapon to politely ask the man not to overreact, disconnect the phone while calmly paying for what they need, and confiscates his firearm. By sheer coincidence, their doppelgangers spot them in this peculiar situation and decide to follow them. They ram them off the road for a standoff. The criminals believe Nick and Terrence are just like them and warn the duo to stay out of their territory or face dire consequences. Nick and Terrence try to explain the misunderstanding but are assaulted instead. Then they find Nick's fancy calling card case and realize he must be Mr. Fancy Pants instead. They now demand his wallet. But this action only infuriates Nick, and he courageously lets out a barrage of personal attacks, temporarily stunning the felons. This distracts them long enough for Terrence to grab their weapon and disarm them, accidentally hitting Nick in the arm. He then deflates the offender's tires and they quickly escape. In the car, they realize it's just a simple graze. Terrence offers Nick a place to stay for the night. He only asks Nick not to disclose his activities to his family and lies to his wife that he was at a job interview with Nick but he got mugged to explain why they look rough. Nick gets to see Terrence in a different light. It's obvious that he's not just a petty thief, but a talented man with a loving family, struggling to make an honest living. Meanwhile, the other two men hijack a car in their continuous hunt, heading for Nick's office, determined to get their guys. The next morning they resort to their old tricks to get supplies for their heist. Nick suggests Terrence be more respectful in the act, They get a few flashlights with FM radios on it. That night, they go to Nick's office, distracting the security before sneaking in. They take the stairs to the 15th floor to avoid detection. Just then, the other two felons spot their car outside, proving their hunch right. Meanwhile, inside, their plan is simple. Terrence is to use his skills to disengage the ridiculous security system to his boss's office. Nick then easily accesses the safe, revealing a ton of cash. With great success, they can leave right away. But something snaps in Nick, and he can't resist the urge to exact his revenge. Disregarding their foolproof plan, he cusses at his boss in front of the security camera before destroying his precious statue. Worse than that, he reveals his face, completely endangering the operation. Thanks to Nick's insolence, they're almost caught by a patrolling guard. However, when the coast is almost clear, Nick's radio accidentally goes off. But the security mistakes it for an alarm. He uses that opportunity to unwind, completely losing track of time, frustrating the duo. He eventually stops and they are able to escape, unknowingly closely being observed. They go to a hotel to celebrate. It's a life-changing amount of money for Terrence. Instead of joining in, Nick chooses to go drown his sorrows at the bar. He runs into the pretty florist. They flirt and get a little too close for comfort, but Nick prefers to be alone. A knock is heard back at the hotel room. Terrence believes it's Nick, but is immediately ambushed. The criminals tie him up and steal all the money. Meanwhile, Nick finally decides to give his wife a call. She's been worried about him, but he interrupts her, says he saw everything and knows about the affair. She then explains that she wasn't home then. Her sister and her fiancé had gotten to town earlier than planned. That's who he saw. But then how does she explain his boss's cufflinks? She tells him he had left it there on their last dinner party. He's relieved to hear all this, but then it dawns on him his grievous mistake. He rushes up to the room in an attempt to make it right. On his floor, he sees the thugs leaving and immediately knows something's wrong. When he enters the room, he sees Terrence in a precarious position. He quickly devises a plan to save him. He catches the sheet, keeping Terrence up for a bit, but then it slips. Luckily, he only ends up on the next floor. They quickly leave the hotel in hot pursuit. They catch up with the criminals and ram them off the road. Then they have another showdown. The felons think they have the upper hand, but Nick somehow expertly fires the weapon out their hands with the desperate determination to get his life back. They take back their loot and leave the criminals hogtied for the cops to find. They believe they've caught their suspects with no questions asked. Back on the road, Nick explains the misunderstanding to Terrence and has to return the money, but Terrence is reluctant, already having made plans. They spend some time fighting for it, each knowing their lives depend on it. Terrence points out it's already too late since he's shown his face. But Nick explains they only review the tapes if something is missing. With deep regret, he gives up the money and walks away. His dream of making a better life for his family completely shattered. Each man goes back to his normal life. The next morning, it's business as usual for Nick until his secretary comes in to explain they're reviewing the tapes, since the statue was destroyed. Panicking, Nick tries to distract his distraught boss, but it doesn't work. The man is determined to know who chopped off his precious ornament. Just before his face is revealed, the tape changes to another video, and Nick is relieved. We find out that an unauthorized electrician had been there that morning, and Nick lies that he authorized the work, knowing it must have been Terrence. Extremely grateful, Nick goes to see Terrence, who is at a picnic with his family. He thanks him for his ingenuity and offers him a job in tech security. Terrence gladly accepts, and the movie ends, but not before Nick and Terrence send the gas station attendant his money back. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the next one. See you then.